So obviously we're here to discuss the new Terror record, Pain into Power, which comes out on Friday, 6th of May. Interested to obviously learn your thoughts on the record and what people can expect when they obviously when they listen to it when it's out on Friday.
Well, it's kind of extra exciting because this record's been done since last July, so I'm sure every band's in the same issue where they had some, not every band, but a lot of bands are in the same situation where you had music done, but there was no shows, so you kind of waited to put it out, and then once you wanted to put it out, the pressing plants were so backed up, and so here we are. So it's pretty exciting because for me, we had this thing finished not quite a year ago, but about 9 or 10 months ago. So sitting on it that long kind of sucks a little bit. Yeah. But I mean, to be, I'm a humble guy. I don't go around listening or talking about Terror all the time, but I think this record's kind of elevated to a little bit of a new level with the intensity and brutality and speed and curiosity. So, I'm really excited. I think people are really, really going to like it. And, a lot of hardcore bands right now are being a little more on the experimental side, where they're kind of going away from just the straight-up hardcore sound, and I think this thing's just 100% right down the middle hardcore.
That's kind of, I'm glad you brought that up because that was, I did want to ask about that, the level of intensity on the record, because I mean I've been able to listen to it, and I've had it on as I've been walking to work of a morning, listening to it to obviously get prepared, and why that was the thing that really did catch me. It's a bit like I compare it to kind of like a 100-meter sprint, because there's no it's literally start, gun, and go. I kind of got a very what it reminded me of, not to kind of pigeonhole the entire record, was it reminded me of the faster songs off Lowest of the Low, something like Keep Your Distance as an example, crossed with pre-setted off Madball releases when they had Vinny on guitar and Roger on bass, where it was just straight, short, sharp, not much of a there's build up there, but as soon as that build up's gone, it's just straight at it, which is like you said, it's really elevated that intensity level of a Terror record. When you were obviously when the album was being put together and composed, was that pre-planned that's where you wanted to go with it, or was it just a natural, the way the songs naturally came together?
It was definitely pre-planned, and it was the person who produced this record's Todd Jones, who was our original guitar player when the band started.
Yeah.
And he did the first couple records with us and touring, and then he left the band. He now does Nails, yep, which you can kind of hear that same intensity in the music. So he definitely came when we asked him to produce this, and he agreed. He kind of came with the plan of kind of what you just described, a sprint, nothing letting up, keeping the songs really short, and from the minute you start the record till it ends, it doesn't let up at all.
Yeah.
That was the plan. It does let up in a few places, but very, very little.
Yeah.
And, like what you said, comparing it to Low So Low, that makes sense because Todd wrote that record. And comparing it to Madball Set It Off is the ultimate compliment. So I think we achieved what we were looking to do. I know really fast hardcore isn't really popular right now, but I think it's going to land because this thing just hits so hard. I think people need this.
Yeah. I think with it, obviously, where it is extremely fast, I think what I'm still hearing the groove element that Terror is so good at doing, because you've still got areas of the record. I mean, the first track's a perfect example. Pain to Power. When that breakdown kicks in, that's that's nasty. You know, that has still got that really vicious element to it that's I imagine is going to cause all kinds of havoc when these songs are being performed live on a regular basis. You mentioned Todd was involved in this record because, am I right in thinking Todd was also involved in the set of re-recorded tracks that was released last year as well?
Yeah, I mean, just from doing some other interviews, the way it looks is we did that record called "Trapped in a World" with Todd, and then decided to get him to produce this. But it's kind of the opposite. Okay. We asked him to produce the record, and we started working on it. In the middle of that process, we just went in for a weekend and ripped that "Trapped in a World" record out. So, you know, a lot of time over the pandemic, Todd was free. A lot of us were in Los Angeles, and we just spent a lot of time working on stuff. The record, the new record, "Painting the Power," was obviously the focus and the main goal. And then just the fact that Nick has a studio, and we all had free time, and we were all having, you know, such a positive, good vibe in the studios. We just ripped that Trapped in a World record out.
But obviously but the focus was getting Painting to Power ready for release. With you saying it's been ready for about a year, what was the total timeline for the actual songwriting from when you started? And you obviously you were involved. You knew the kind of like the area in which you wanted it to go and how you wanted it to sound. What was the actual time frame on actually getting the full thing written prior to starting recording?
You know, I'm gonna say like almost a year. Okay, but that sounds like it took a long time. We were just getting together with Todd, Martine, and Nick and myself because we were the four that were in LA. Yeah. Every other weekend, like every other Sunday. So we were only getting together once a week, and then Jordan and Chris, our guitarist and bass player, they were kind of stuck on the other. You know, Jordan lives in Canada and Chris lives in Maine. So they were just like sending riffs and doing stuff that bands do now, like writing stuff with a fake drummer and giving us ideas and giving their input. But we were only getting together with Todd once every other week, so twice a month. It's just because there was no rush. There was, you know, a lot of times we're touring and we got this to do and deadlines. This was just so free and open that it was just like, you know, sometimes we'd get together and write a whole song. Sometimes we'd write two. Sometimes 2 weeks in a row we just didn't have anything, but there was like no pressure. So it took a long time, but it took a long time when you look at it calendar and week-wise. Yeah. But the actual time we spent on it was not a ton, you know? Yeah.
With you obviously normally touring quite frequently, was it, I mean, I assume it was quite refreshing to be able to have the time to sit down and properly go through things as opposed to having to maybe have to do it in between, you know, a week, let's say a week off between tours kind of thing. Was that a refreshing change for the songwriting process for you guys as compared to what it may be during a normal calendar year for the band when you can actively go out and tour?
I mean, yes and no, and I don't want to make light of all the way the world was on fire and the way people were losing their source of income and all the uncertainty and unrest. So I'll address that first. That was not cool.
No, definitely.
But also, it was really cool to have a break from touring and not living out of a bag and getting away. You know, I love everyone at Terrible. We're together so much. Yeah. It was nice to have a break. And it was nice also to write without deadlines or pressure. But at the same time, it sucked to not have the whole band be in the same room. Yeah. There's songs on the record that Jordan wrote the whole thing. Chris has riffs on the record, and they had lots of input. But it also kind of sucked to not have them right there. So it was great in a lot of ways, but it also sucked in some ways.
No, I understand that. With regard to obviously the record, you've got some guest appearances on it. Obviously the name that really stood out with regard to the first single that you released was George Fisher. And you've got a history of working alongside artists outside of the hardcore world on your records. The main one that comes to mind for me is Vinnie Paz from Jedi Mind Tricks, who's been on a couple of different releases. Do you find it refreshing having a voice that is not necessarily associated with hardcore being on your records, as opposed to having people who, I mean, because you've worked with other members of the hardcore community, but having people outside of that be a part of something, is that something that you find refreshing and that you want to keep doing as you keep expanding the Terror back catalogue?
Yeah, I mean, we've had like Jamie from Hatebreed and Freddie from Madball and Aaron from Death Threat and Eddie from Leeway and people from younger bands, more current younger bands.
Because you've got members of Year of the Knife on this record as well, if I'm correct.
Yeah. So it's always important to us, to keep it in the hardcore scene. That's always important, but. To what you're saying, yes, it was great to work with Vinnie Paz and do something outside the box. And again, to do something with Corpse Grinder is super, super cool and refreshing, like you asked. And those things are like, I don't want to say dreams come true because that's a little too epic, but things you never really think would happen, and then they come together so organically, and it's super cool. But I don't think we'd ever, go so far outside of our lane. Like Vinny and George are both people that love hardcore, and you can talk about Warzone, Youth of Today, and Madball with them. They're very versed in hardcore and respect it and love it, but, they just took their musical things in a different route that we completely respect. So if it's someone we respect and can vibe with, hell yeah, let's get as weird as possible.
I mean, I assume that goes the same with touring as well, because you, I can't remember if it was earlier this year or the back end of last year, you had a tour with Dying Fetus and Vitriol, and I saw you in 2007 with Necro and Ill Bill in London. So you've obviously quite.
Damn, you saw that?
I was at that show, yeah. I was at that one.
Man, I wish we could. I've really pressed Vin Paz to do a tear. I'm gonna text him right now while we're talking. But yeah, it is the same. And we did that show with Necro and Ill Bill, and that was so cool. And I wish we could do more of that. But yeah, you're right. We have toured with Cannibal Corpse. We just did that thing with Dying Fetus. And sometimes we stepped too far outside the box and did some tours with some bands that we didn't necessarily love or vibe with, just to see what it was like to play with the crowd. And I don't say we regret it, but sometimes you just kind of learn from what you do and do things a little bit differently. But yeah, it is similar. We like playing to different crowds, and we like stepping outside of our comfort zone and getting different people to work with and touring with different elements. But you do want to be with people that you vibe with and respect, for sure.
I know that, speaking of that Necro show, is that I've got a friend who was at that show as well and had never heard of Terror and is an absolute massive fan based on that show. He was, he was a hip hop head. He was not massively into to hardcore, but he went to that show, and from doing that, he discovered new music. So it's definitely got that. It's definitely got ways of working. But like you say, you've got to take that risk to do that. And is that something that's going to continue? I assume that's going to continue down the road, and there's going to be more things that you look at doing, which are within that are outside the box, to be able to keep pushing the band's name forward.
I hope so. It depends on what opportunities come our way, but we're always open-minded to cool shit.
Cool. With regard to, obviously, the touring history of the band, do you have particular countries or or areas within the US and, well, North America, for example, or countries in Europe or further afield that you would normally say, if we're going to be touring that region, that country's somewhere that we need to go because they're always going to give us they're always going to give us the reaction that we want?
I mean, we're lucky enough to be able to go anywhere in the world and usually get a pretty decent reaction where people get wild to the music and know the lyrics. We're not the biggest band, but I think we've built a fan base pretty much all over the world. Europe, mainland Europe and Germany are really like the hot spots that are always extra strong for us. The U.S. is always going to be really important to us, and there's certain cities like Chicago and San Antonio, Texas. Those are like and we just did a weekend in L.A. that was incredible. So there's those spots, but you don't want to get too comfortable and just lean into those places. You got to appreciate the smaller cities and the places that don't have like such a built-in history of a hardcore scene. You want to give them the love to and make sure you keep them important as well. Cool.
Is there a particular... One thing I've always wondered is that if someone was to say to you, they've got no there's money's not an issue to them, or not thing. If there was a terror show at a particular venue they had to see at some point in their life, is there a venue that you could honestly go out there and say, yes, that venue is always going to be absolutely chaotic? That is that is the ultimate terror live experience. Is there any way you could pinpoint that would give you that you'd be able to answer like that?
Yes, it's a place called Woody's in Schleicht, Germany. And we've played there twice, and it's been insane. And we're actually playing there in 2 months or something. And it's they're shutting down, so it's the last show there. So I expect it to be extra crazy,
extra special to kind of like to finish off that venue kind of thing.
Yeah, go out with a bang.
Awesome. Obviously, you've mentioned there you're back in Europe in a couple of months because you're playing Outbreak Fest in the UK. Then you're off to the mainland to do some dates. With regard to the UK, because that's where I am. Outbreak's the only UK show. Is there any? And you did the tour earlier this year with Knock Loose. Are there any plans for further shows in the UK this year, or is that going to be more 2023?
I don't know. We have a tour with Lionheart. I don't know if it comes to the UK. That's in November.
Okay.
I'm not sure, to be honest. I could look if you want me to. Let me see real quick. Yeah, I mean, we just did the thing with Knock Loose. That was, really cool. That was our first time going overseas in 2 years. So that was pretty special. Let me see. Come to the UK. Nah, my best guess would be that it's just
Outbreak.
But the Underworld's another venue. I could have said that's pretty always a sure shot for a crazy show.
Can confirm that.
We actually filmed a DVD there once, so that was cool. But we'll be back. I don't know when, but we're always in the UK, so we'll be back.
Cool. A couple of final questions for you, if it's okay. With regards to you personally, because you've been involved in hardcore for a long time, going back to obviously Buried Alive and Despair prior to that, as you continue to release records, do you get a higher sense of accomplishment based on the fact that that you can continue to do it for this long period of time?
I've never thought about it. Since my answer is I never thought about that, I guess not, because I don't really put much thought into that. I mean, it's still cool. It's still important. It's still great to see the layout. It's still really cool when you get the vinyl in your hands and look through it for the first time. but I don't really look at it as accomplishments. I guess I just try my best to write lyrics that people can connect with. Try to keep the band true to like who we are, and not pull some like corny shit and stuff like that. No, I don't look at it as accomplishments. Whether that's for better or for worse, I just don't think like that.
That's fair. That's fair. You bought the lyrics. Is there any particular songs on the new record, lyric-wise, that are your personal highlights that you've written for this record?
Yeah, I think the record, the lyrics on the record are really good and pretty powerful with the times we're living in. There was kind of a lot to say, but I would point everyone towards the end of the record, the song "On the Verge of Violence."
Yeah.
And then I think if I'm getting the track listing next, it's the last song, "Prepare for the Worst."
Yeah.
Those two songs in particular, lyrically, are really kind of important to me, and I think really sum up the record and really sum up where my brain was at in the last 2 years during all this nightmare life we've been living.
Thank you. One final question, Scott, then I will let you go.
Sure.
Is there an adequate number of stage dives for you when you're playing live, or is it never enough?
There is, but I'll never admit it. I'll always try to go for more. And as long as no one's getting hurt and the venue's not, shit isn't getting broke to where the venue's freaking out, stage diving can be beautiful. Brilliant.
Scott, appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Thank you for calling. Thanks for having us. And
no problem.
Thanks for pushing the new record.
Thanks for listening. Make sure you keep up to date with future episodes by subscribing to our channels. For more information on this podcast, or for all the latest music news, reviews, interviews and more, head over to our website, www.therazorsedge.rocks.